Thank you for auditing Professor Sky's Record Review, the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's always looking for some kind of framing device for every video that I do. This is going to be the second time that I'm reviewing the band Shushu, Xiu Xiu, and the first time is one of my better, very early, sweaty episodes. I talked about the title of that album, which was Girl with a Basket of Fruit, and I compared it to Vermeer and the artist Robert Rauschenberg. I did a very sort of art history-centric review for a band that is very much an art band, a band that has all the joy and the heaviness of an art band, art music band. But this time, I want a different kind of frame. I'm not going to focus on the name of the album. Oh no! Instead, I'm going to focus on the name of the band themselves, Xiu Xiu. Now, it turns out, and I learned this in my 5 minutes of research before this video, that they were named after a 1998 Chinese movie, Shushu, the Sent Down Girl. You can't find this video, except it does exist on YouTube. There is a bootlegged copy that is up on YouTube. Last night, I sat down with the wife and we watched this movie. And I will at least say this, I am no expert on Shushu the band, nor Shushu the movie, directed by Joan Chen. A very good movie, highly recommended. But I will tell you this, I understand this music way better after watching the movie. Understanding that they might be trying to do in music what Shushu did in film makes their music more meaningful and makes their mission much more clear. So here's my spoiler review. You're getting two reviews for one. Here's my spoiler-free review of the movie Shushu, the Sent Down Girl. The Chinese government forced young people who lived in the city to work in the countryside, to learn the pastoral arts, I don't know. And it follows this one girl who is named Shushu, and she is sent in and she ends up having to live in this tent with this very quiet, passive guy. It's a story about displacement and cruelty and humanity and the beauty of nature, the alienation of the urban, the sort of dysfunction and terrible corruption of bureaucracy. It is a movie which is very heavy, but that I was very, very happy to have watched. I would like to personally thank the band Shushu for forcing me to watch this movie I never would have seen. It's one of those movies that does something that other movies don't do. It's one of those movies where you watch it and then the next day you're thinking about it more than you were when you were watching it. It just stays with you. It is such an amazingly strong movie. If I had to give a general review of this movie, I actually even printed it up, just so you can read along with me. I don't have a script, right? I just have notes. But this, I really like the way that I said this. There's the poster of the movie, by the way. There's the real Shushu. Oddly sweet, unexpectedly unsettling, life-affirming, yet also misanthropic at the same time. Contemplative and also political. Ugly and beautiful. Filled with characters who are not particularly likable or relatable, like real life. Hard to understand. Part of the reason it's hard to understand is that the subtitles are not professional. I would guess that they were made by someone who does speak English fluently, but does not know how to translate properly. So the pronouns are all over the place, the tenses are all over the place. There are some things that I learned from reading the synopsis on Wikipedia that I had no idea. I didn't know the guy was a eunuch. I didn't know he was from Tibet. The entire ending made no sense to me. And more interestingly, they sort of translate idioms directly, but it's enough that you understand the movie. You understand what's being said. You understand the depth of this character study, the sense of displacement, the oddness and the cruelty of human beings in front of the beauty of nature. It does lead to some very funny lines such as, "Check your teeth, go offline," or "I've waited for you since the 7th movie. We almost got back the tent." And my personal favorite, "Night will become day if the tailor does not eat less fabric." That's what it literally says. So why am I telling you about this movie so much? You're here for a music review. You might have already seen the movie. I don't know. Well, let me tell you something. There's another reason that I printed this out. I'm gonna get out my marker here. I'm just gonna cross out the Sent Down Girl, and I'm just going to write Shushu, oh no. You want my review of this movie? Oddly sweet, unexpectedly unsettling, life-affirming yet also misanthropic at the same time. Contemplative and also slyly political. Ugly and beautiful, filled with characters who are not particularly likable and relatable, much like real life. Hard to understand. I'm happy that it was made. It is doing something that no one else is doing, and it is currently in the process of haunting me, just like the movie. It's able to do all of these things that the movie is able to do. That's why I would say it is such a successful movie and such a successful album, that it's able to create all of those emotions all at once. Now, I haven't talked much about the album even yet, about what it sounds like. It's basically, the last album that I reviewed by them, I don't know them very well. I don't know their previous works. I'm not intimately aware. I am a French professor. I am not a music critic, so I'm missing, there's a lot I don't know. But the last one, I remember being much more aggressively electronic. This is mostly a series of duets. You know, on the internet where they do that thing, the iceberg thing? You know, like they'll show an iceberg and then they'll tell you different layers of the iceberg, and the deeper it goes down, like the deeper the knowledge is. I always hate those things because I consider myself to be pretty well informed about a lot of things, and nothing that I know ever gets below that tip of the iceberg. The duets on this album feel to me like they're all at the bottom of the iceberg. Like, I sort of knew the names of like 3 of the artists on here, but then the rest of them, I don't know who they are. I can tell you they're all good. Every single collaboration on here is excellent, but it just kind of reminded me how little I know about music, despite the fact that I make 3 to 4 videos about new music every week. One of the most remarkable things about the album, beyond the production, is the voice, the way that he sings. I didn't get it at first. This is definitely a 3 to 4 listen album before you can even start to understand it. And I would even give you the homework of watching the movie before you even try. I mean, really, like it's an experience, you know? Much like going to an art museum, you can't just go to some artists. Like some artists you really have to like be, and you have to experience, and you have to see it, and you have to feel it. You can't just kind of like look and check it off in your box. That's kind of the way this is. So the voice took me a long time. I ended up liking it. But it's sort of always like this, and I don't know if it was, at first I thought he was joking. It's better than that. But it reminded me of like Lauren O'Dare, but not as beautiful. It reminded me of Nick Cave, but not as good when it's good and not as bad when it's bad. Ultimately, I came to love it as it went along with the rest of the music. I think one of the things you could say about this musically is, so when you buy an instrument, you want to use an instrument, right? So a good example is anytime a band buys a cowbell, the next song that they write, the drummer is going to shoehorn that cowbell in there somewhere, right? Apparently someone for Shushu bought a gong, and there are so many gongs on this album. I always think about, you know, Led Zeppelin and all the great rock bands where they'd get the gong just to play it once during a concert. There's an excellent usage of gongs on this album. And that sounds like I'm belittling it, but I'm very much not. There's a dedication to using unexpected instruments on here that never feels forced and is always quite enjoyable. I mean, there's like banjo at one point, I think there's a zither, guitar, sometimes the drums are real, sometimes they're like drum machines, sometimes they're very noticeable old drum machines. The whole thing is like kind of a sad soundtrack with odd horror movie sounds put in. It doesn't feel super synthetic, yet you can tell that it was made primarily during COVID, primarily by one person, primarily in a room, presumably going crazy and feeling alienated and isolated. If you read their description on Bandcamp, I guess a lot of this album is about feeling betrayed by people and feeling isolated. And this album communicates that, but I don't think it's a sad album either. I didn't get the feeling while listening that this is like, you know, slit your wrist music or whatever. It's just sort of, it's weird. It's kind of like the movie, again, where like it's definitely a sad movie, but you don't feel, you know, it's not Dancer in the Dark sad. You know, you're not like, oh, I hate everything, I won't be able to eat my breakfast tomorrow. It's more of like a study of sadness, if that makes sense. The way the lyrics are written often feels as though it's poetry with no thought of meter. Like, just get the words in there. And at times, it actually reminded me the most of hymns. Like hymns where someone just wrote a prayer and they're just jamming it into the music. And then, you know that feeling you sometimes get? So these themes are in here: betrayal, a fair amount of misanthropy, the idea that the world is doomed. But on second and third listening, again, you don't really have that sad feeling. I was tempted on the first listen to call it goth, you know, because it does remind me of Nick Cave at times, and sometimes the aggressiveness of the sort of industrial breakdowns remind me of the Swans, or even sometimes the sort of the lush soundscape, the kind of like faraway feeling of Sushi and the Banshees. Shushi and the Banshees. I wrote down that joke, actually. I'm a little bit embarrassed. I wrote down Xiu Xiu-splosion. But let me get into the album here. I'm going to skip the first track, basically skip the first track. It's fine, but the second track is what I call my homework. So this is, if you've never heard them, and I've given you this whole explanation, you're probably like, wow, I want to hear this band, and I suggest you listen to them. So check out the link up there to the song I Cannot Resist. Let me tell you why this is a typical Shushu Oh No song. Primarily because of this wonderful complexity. The way that it's sung, the guest appearance as someone named Deb Demure, I don't know who they are. I'm not cool enough to know who all these people are. Says, you know, I cannot resist. It almost sounds like a Gregorian chant. And then sort of halfway through, it becomes like an angry, broken march with all these bizarre sounds, almost like a train whistle in the back. And like, it almost feels playful. Truly, it feels like dark and foreboding, but also playful. And then there's like bird songs. And then there's the sound of like someone whipping around a stick or a saber. And then the guy comes in and says, bing bong, bing bong, head rolling down the stairs. And the whole time you're sort of smiling, sort of crying, in between here with some of these great inscrutable lyrics. The fruits of passion are such a hassle to clean up. Two idiots unbored with love. I sort of get it. Kind of. All the lyrics on here are that kind of poetry where you go, I sort of get it, but not really. I imagine if I sit with it for another couple months, I'll get a lot more. The next track is called The Grifters. Is this a relation? Is this like a reference to the Annette Bening movie? I don't think so. It seems to start with a tabla sound. A little bit more has a female vocalist on here, and a guitar and a synth. The voice almost becomes kind of operatic. This is a good example of what I mean by that sort of forced hymn meter. This seems to be one of those heartbroken songs like, I'm a friend unlike you. Too much has deflowered is more than enough. The slip of self-love. It does seem somewhat angry at whoever it is that they're singing about. The next track is called Goodbye for Good. Now, I was curious what this is about. This, again, has that kind of prayer, spoken, clumsy, rhythmless meter. And this is a song about the world not needing us, okay? And that plants find us disgusting. This is my Philodendron Birkin, Melody Nelson. She finds me disgusting. She wants me to die. All the animals want me to die. It is a very aggressive, borderline, like punk, anti-global warming song that's basically saying the end of the world is coming and good riddance to human beings, we don't need us. At the end, there's these grinding guitars, and it really feels apocalyptic at the end. And he even seems to say that he would kill himself before he would see the world turn out like that. You may notice the Mad Max poster. I read a quote from him where he said he would kill himself before he would live in a Road Warrior world, or Mad Max Part 3 Beyond Thunderdome, or the new Mad Max with Charlize Theron. It's kind of a funny quote, so that's why I included it there. And so many gongs, even more gongs in this song. So this is definitely one of the themes, the disillusion with all human society, right? That's that misanthropic side I'm talking about here. Then comes the track Oh No, the first hint that they are also capable of making something kind of melodic or kind of catchy. For this album, it's fairly easy listening. For the album, which is in general takes a fair amount of effort. You know, I don't know, that might not be fair, but it's demanding. That's what I would say. I wouldn't say it takes a lot of effort, but you definitely have to give it a lot of attention. Very cool kind of like drums in here. It eventually turns into kind of like a weird disco, like dancing song, and this weird like German language talking in the back. And I'm pretty sure this starts off with an auto harp. All these things come together to make this very nice, very interesting, mysterious song. Rumpus Room is another one of these oddly fun songs. There's like the music has like, you know, when you used to like, get the keyboards and you could have the vocalization, ha ha ho 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 ho, you know, it's doing that. And so that has there, and the lyrics are even kind of goofy about like flaming hot Cheetos. It's another kind of dancey song. A good amount of this album you could sort of dance, right? Especially when it kicks in, when he starts talking about the rumpus room. These great rhythms are happening here. I'm telling you, every song does something different. Every song has a reason to be. Raison d'être, French professor, I'll just say it the right way. And this one, it appears to be this drums and percussion that's happening here. Very cool, complicated rhythms, while the keyboards are doing something very simple, just going in between octaves, you know? Octaves. I don't need to pronounce it octaves. Oh, you don't pronounce it octaves? Clearly you've never heard of Shushu. The next track, Fuzz Gong Fight. Gongs is in the title, and there's more gongs on here. A great fractured beat. It's much more electronic. This is featuring the person who is the other member of the band. So how are you featuring the person who's the other member of the band? I don't know. I seriously feel like a lot of the lyrics on this album and a lot of the way this album is made, it's like those bad subtitles on the movie. Where it's like, I sort of get what you mean, that you're talking about your father who's really good at like sewing together your clothes, and that's a sign of your poverty, but also of his resourcefulness and how much you love your father. I understand that, but the way that it comes across, the way that you actually said it, is kind of hard to understand, because the way that you said it was, night will not become day if the tailor does not eat less fabric. But I was able to get it, right? I was able to get the point of the movie, just like a lot with this album. Really, probably my favorite guest appearance on here. Maybe it's because she's a more regular collaborator. Most kind of movie-like. It's most like the movie thematically. Like I could actually almost read parts of the movie into this. And I don't know if this is on purpose. I did read in one of their biographies that they consider the movie to be a part of their music. But maybe I'm reading too much into it. If you are a Shushu fanatic, please tell me in the comments. Am I overreading the importance of this movie? Or are they just a good enough band that they can actually do something as good? Like, that might be the best movie I've seen all year, by the way. Even with the bad subtitles. Would you watch it already? I'll put it in the description, okay? Just go watch that movie. Next track, I Dream of Someone Else Entirely. Kind of a lead singer, like just spoken. He starts speaking and then he starts doing his odd singing and the kind of banjo sound. Again, it has that feeling of prayer set to music. 100 Years, a really cool badass drum machine going on here. Reminds me a little bit of like Portishead's last album, that kind of like very raw and danceable feel, very tortured voice. And again, we can all die, right? We can all die. We'll let Melody Nelson take over the world because we're so terrible. Chelsea Wolfe is the guest appearance here. I don't know who she is, but she is great. I love her on here. Her voice, the way it interacts with this kind of punishing drum machine, and these very dark goth lyrics about 100 years of blood. A classic Screw. Here's some typical lyrics of them. Lashed to shatter but unleashed. Candyland toward Candyland, Minnie Mouse leap. You have set to a wavering, a thoughtless mind. I'm telling you, is this not night will become day if the tailor does not eat less fabric? It very much feels that way. The next track, it bothers me all the time. Now I'm a little bit disappointed in this song only because I thought it was about something else until I read the lyrics. Because it says, whatever it is, it bothers me all the time. And when I heard that, I don't know if I suffer from generalized anxiety disorder. I will say that I have suffered from generalized anxiety disorder. So I thought this was my anthem, right? Whatever it is, it bothers me all the time. Because whenever you suffer from anxiety, you'll just find a different reason, you know? I got to do this academic master plan thing for my school. I've got to do all this like paperwork. And I got a lot of grading to do for my one class because I've assigned a lot, but I haven't graded hardly any of it. And so like I have all these things going on in my head. But when I'm calm, none of those things bother me. But if I'm not calm, any of those things can put me on edge. But it turns out it's probably just another song about global warming. Rats are loyal to the earth. You are less than a rat, and rats will eat anything, children and dogs. It's not tongue-in-cheek. It's very serious lyrics, but it's almost laughable. It's almost like a bad like death metal band, you know. Rats are loyal to the earth. You are less than a rat, children and dogs. Right, but still, it's another great track And it ends with all these horror sounds all the way throughout. Like there's another song where there's like almost the sounds that open up the movie The Shining. There. Here has like these sounds of like balloons being deflated, very kind of unsettling. Then the next track, Saint Dinfa. Dinfna? It's kind of a romantic song. It has like a surfer guitar in there and the most moving lyrics on the album. I'd never heard of Saint Dinfna, but it turns out she is the saint of people who are abused by their parents. Hey, way to go, Catholic Church. That's a good saint. That's a lot better than like, you know, the Church of Crossing a River or whatever, you know, the saint of crossing the river, right? Apparently this was a saint who was killed by her father, but this is just an excuse to talk about abuse. And it's very beautiful, and I hope. So even though I might find the stuff about global warming to be a bit preachy, and I'm just a bourgeois pig, so who cares about me? This, I think, is pretty meaningful because I think it could reach somebody. Here's some of the lyrics. Getting used to battery, getting used to getting through it, consequence of no consequence, if any calm, a calm despair. And it's a pretty good description of what it's like to be in an abusive relationship. You get used to it and you get through it, and there's the consequences of no consequences. I see you, Shushu. You are very capable of writing excellent lyrics that I understand. You're also capable of writing excellent lyrics that I don't understand. But listen to this next set of verse. Each night is stupid. What a great way to describe ritual abuse. Each night is stupid. I mean, what a silly, small word. Stupid is such a small word for such a big thing as what's being implied by this. Callous, severe. Each night is out of control, brutal and cruel. So it kind of builds up and builds up. Headphones turned up, cuckoo and bright, scream into the flickering void. But it ends with a hopeful note. He is not what you are. His life is not the end. So for all those who are abused, who I hope would hear this song, would know that your abuser is not what you are. And that's one of the hardest things to learn when you're in an abusive relationship, is that you are not the person who is abusing you. It's weird. Thank you, Shushu. Thank you for writing these great lyrics, because I'm going to save this. Like, I'm going to save this for, I've known many people in my life who have been in abusive relationships, and I'm going to play this song for them in the future. So there's a very important thing done. And just to go back to it, Shushu, the Sent Down Girl, also a very important movie, I think, in terms of some of these similar themes. Although, if you're triggered by those things, a fair amount of content warning, there's a lot of unpleasant stuff in there. Then we get Knockout, which is almost a kind of catchy song. This is sort of towards the end, they get this sort of New Order kick, like nice, strong, clean guitars and kind of a bouncy song. Even a little U2-ish with the reverb that's on the guitars. Eyes out a cage, frock divorcee, thighs disarray, light black all the way. I don't quite know what it means. Some spoken word stuff by the guest appearance. I love this detail of her spoken word poetry. Killing a scorpion with an orthopedic tennis shoe against your hotel tile. Beautiful line. And then the album ends with a dance song. It's like, you could put this on at any party and just dance. It's like a totally awesome New Order style, like 80s style dance song. Very strong bass, very nice strum guitar, clear drum machine, simple, gong hits everywhere. And just the lyrics are still very Shushu. I'm ashamed of the pain, drink a bottle of rum, get away Roberta. I don't know what these things all mean, but it's very nice. And it's sort of like what the album does a fair amount, where kind of like that song about abuse, where it's kind of like bleak and tough, but it does offer this kind of hopefulness as well. And then the album ends with a spoken word poem. Ants, take a little chance and dance. It could be your last chance to dance, little ants, something like that. A nice little poem, which I think is about humanity and our need to, I guess, find it out through joy and art. Is that maybe a thesis of the album? It could be. I don't know. So there we go. There's my review of both Shushu the movie and Shushu, Oh No, the album. I'm very happy that I do this channel. If I didn't do this channel, I would not have this kind of access to this kind of music. I just wouldn't. And you know, I had my life kind of shut off to new music and to art music, And here I am, and I'm getting to actually review this really cool band I never would have heard of for a second time. So thank you. And to that end, I had to go over and get my Patreon sheet. I'm still at 9 Patreons. If you'd like to support me, you can. You don't have to though. I don't need money to live. I need money to buy music. So that's what I do with my Patreon money. I buy music with it. I'm going to be buying my, I'm going to be taking my payments and buying music next week. So thank you to these folks right here for helping out. There's different levels, different things you can do. I have like these videos that I do that are like kind of goofy. Like I tell the whole story about what that's all about. I had lots of outtake videos of me like looking very angry at the camera and like swearing because the dogs did something goofy. So anyways, thank you all to my Patreons. I very much appreciate it. And thank you to Shushu for introducing me to Shushu. Okay. For Melody Nelson and the rest of the plants, there's the camera.